Welcome to AthleticAlert, sponsored by Michael Rosenblum, podiatrist, your foot and ankle specialist. Today, it's all fantasy football. It's just around the corner, and you guys need some advice. The hardest part in the draft, we could all argue, is probably the last couple rounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's give them a spot for each position with an ADP, I don't know, after 100. How about that?
I don't know.
Yeah, over 100 challenge?
An over 100 challenge. That sounds great to me.
Let's do it.
All right, so let's start with quarterbacks.
All right, my quarterback was Tyrod Taylor. He's being drafted as the 20th quarterback right now, even though he finished as the 8th quarterback last season. He's extremely consistent, finishing with the exact same amount of fantasy points in 2015 and 2016. And it's nice to have somebody with a high floor. And what gives him a high floor is his rushing. He has plenty of yards and plenty of touchdowns, always among the top of the league, among quarterbacks in the top of the league. So the fact that he has a floor that's high and he's consistent, I'm going to take him way ahead of that 20th quarterback spot.
Well, I've got Big Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
He's at 111 overall ADP. Clearly he's not, because he finished with 22.5 fantasy points per game last year.
How did you think he was going to do last year?
I thought he was going to do crap, but he did pretty well.
Well,
So let's talk about it.
this year.
So why I'm so high on him this year is because for the first time since 2014, the Steelers will open the season with their killer bees, all three of them ready. That's Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant, and Le'Veon Bell, healthy and ready to go.
Yeah, Brian.
He has a hamstring day-to-day injury, but let's see. He's always played one of those best offensive lines in the NFL. He does get injured, so that's the only downside to him. He's getting old. There are thoughts that he was going to retire, but I just see him. He was 7th overall last year with that points per game average. He has the ability to have monster games. I just think that he will with Antonio Brown, as he usually does.
I can see it.
All right, who's your quarterback, Colin?
I'm a Steelers fan, so
All
I
right,
can't
who's your
argue.
quarterback, Colin?
Let's talk about the man who's always in Peyton's shadow, Mr. Eli Manning.
Oh.
All right,
I would never draft him.
the New York Giants. Yeah, I drafted him last year. I got burned a little bit, but he's on the downside of his career, sure.
Keep trying.
But his ADP right now is in the 120s. Great value for him when you look at the weapons that he has going for him. Odell Beckham Jr., one of the best wide receivers in the game. You complement him with Brandon Marshall, Sterling Shepard, Shane Vereen out of the backfield. The one position they were missing last year was a tight end, right? So what did they draft?
A tight end.
A tight end. A good tight end.
Was
An
very
offensive tight end. Not a
controversial.
blocking tight end, an offensive tight end in Evan Ingram. He doesn't miss a game. He's played 199 consecutive starts. You can plug him every week. Locked for 4,000 yards. And he could get his career best or over his career best at 35 touchdowns.
Career best, no.
You never know.
All right.
With all the people he has on his team,
Yeah, Brandon
he's
Marshall.
going to get somewhere in the 30s for touchdowns somewhere that late. That's a great
red
value.
zone for that. All right, let's go to running backs. My first running back is Kareem Hunt. Now, Kareem Hunt. It's a matter of opportunity for him. If he gets on the field, he will be fantasy relevant. Now, who's his competition? Spencer Ware.
Yeah.
Spencer Ware, there's questions about him being a workhorse. That's the problem. He was great last season, but a workhorse. The problem is, he averaged 3.3 yards per carry after his first 10 carries of the game. Which means, after his first 10 carries of the game, he starts to get bad. So he's not fit for that workhorse role.
Wow, look at that hole.
Also, Ware only had 3 rushing touchdowns last year, so the end zone could be in Kareem Hunt's favor.
Wow. So I'm going to go with my number 1 running back, Jaquiz Rodgers of the Tampa Bay Bucks. So he went from team to team last year. He played 10 games last season with the Bucks. He ran for 2 touchdowns and 560 yards. Halfway through the season is when he started to shine. He had more rushing attempts, more rushing yards. And
Yeah, well, this is with Doug Martin out.
Yeah, that's right. And Doug Martin will start the season out with his 3-game suspension this season.
3-game suspension.
Right.
That means
So he has a
14
chance.
games
Excuse me, I'll let you talk so you don't let me talk.
All right.
So his yards per carry is 4.3, and that's why they gave him a 2-year contract extension. He really wasn't asked to do much in the passing game, but he does have a good skill set. Maybe he can prove to the Bucks that maybe he can split carries with Doug Martin when he comes back. That means Doug Martin has to be healthy and ready to go. He did have a disappointing second half of the season last year, Doug Martin did. So Jaquiz Rodgers has a good future ahead.
All right, well, let's talk about Doug Martin, because I got Doug Martin as my...
Wow,
I think Jaquiz is trash.
Yeah.
107 ADP right now for Doug Martin. That's tremendous value for a guy that could be a workhorse back. Jacquizz Rodgers, sure, he was okay when he was with the Falcons. I don't think he wins playing time. I think the second Doug Martin gets off a suspension, he's the guy. He's the guy that's going to rush the ball. He had 2+ seasons, 2012, 2015, where he had over 1,600 total yards. He's proven he can do it. Last year, I'll admit, awful year. You need to forget that, and some people can't let that grudge go.
He had a lot going on. He was hurt for that time.
He was hurt. He was suspended. He had a lot of stuff going on in his life. I think after the first 3 games of this year, obviously you're going to have to bite the bullet, but if you get good running backs in the first early rounds, or if you get stuck with, even a bad running back, taking Doug Martin and taking a flyer on a guy who could arguably be a top 5 or a top 10 each week running back, I mean, that's good value.
That's interesting because my second running back is just like that. Jamal Charles, I chose. His ADP is 140. So, I mean, he's going to be an end-of-the-bench guy for you. It's a break-or-bust pick, but there's no risk at this point in the draft. So you may as well take a chance on a guy who has top-of-the-league talent, because if he doesn't perform, you didn't really lose anything. You're drafting him 140th overall. So I'm going to be, I'm taking a flyer on Jamal Charles if he's falling out late.
Yeah, 2 guys that really have always had name-brand value, and this year are forgotten somehow.
Well, my ADP for Jacquizz Rodgers, well, not my ADP. Jacquizz Rodgers' ADP was 148. I'm going to go with a guy higher now with Derrick Henry at 130. Now, I'm not a big fan of Derrick Henry. He's playing behind DeMarco Murray, but I had to pick him because I thought he was the second best option at running back for me.
So you're saying there's not a lot of good end of the draft running backs.
End of the draft running backs, there's not a lot of good ones, but I thought he was one of the top 2. Last season, he ran for 490 yards and 5 touchdowns as a number 2 running back. He caught 13 of his 15 targets, and his yards per carry was 4.5 on 110 carries. So he does have the ability to be a difference maker. Now he's like a red zone threat. They go to him when they need to put it in on the goal line. He had those 5 touchdowns, which is impressive wasn't he a rookie last year?
Yes.
Yes. So he has all the room, he has all the potential to expand his role, but he's playing behind DeMarco Murray.
So the problem is, opportunity. I mean, he has the talent.
Right.
If he gets the red zone opportunities, the only problem with that is you can't predict that. So a guy that gets yards, you can throw in everywhere.
I mean, it's same with Kareem Hunt. They're in the same boat where if the person in front of them gets injured in any way, which running back is the position that gets injured most often, they're the number 1 undisputed guys filling in.
He was coming high out of that NFL draft a couple of years ago, and
So
he's got running back.
Second running back, Darren Sproles, Philadelphia Eagles. I think everybody can attest to this, there is nothing flashy about Darren Sproles, but it's all about depth for me in a draft, and especially if you're in a PPR. This guy's going at ADP 124, 125. He could be a total 4s guy. I'm thinking 400 reception yards, 400 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns.
Reception yards and receiving
yards. Rushing yards, 400 rushing yards, 400 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns. Yes, they got LeGarrette Blount in the offseason, and he'll probably handle most of the goal line work. But right behind him is Sproles. He's so consistent. 60% of his games in a PPR league, he finished with over 10 points. It's a good flex guy to plug in. And he's had 8 straight seasons of 40-plus receptions, so I think you can't go wrong with him. He's always on the field.
Okay. Well, I have another PPR gem possibility. My first wide receiver is Zay Jones. So Sammy Watkins got in a trade. Anquan Bolden suddenly retired, and Jordan Matthews might start the season injured. So as of right now, Zay is the number 1 receiver for them. He's used to getting the volume that a number 1 receiver gets. He had 158 targets in college, finished with 1,800 yards, 10 touchdowns. So he's used to that heavy workload, and I think he can be a PPR machine. Tyrod Taylor is not a deep threat. He's more of a short pass kind of guy. I think Zay at the number 1 receiver for the Bills can get a lot of quick receptions, and he could be a PPR gem.
It's going to be a big test for a rookie. I'm going to go with Robert Woods, at the very bottom, 198 ADP. But let me tell you why I'm so high on him, all right? So he got traded from the Buffalo Bills to the Los Angeles Rams. Not used to calling them that. In his 4 seasons with the Buffalo Bills, the Bills they were one of the bottom 3 teams in pass attempts 3 out of those 4 seasons. So you're talking about that guy from Buffalo. He might have a tough time if they have another horrible season. Last season, in 13 games, he was targeted 76 times and he had 51 receptions with 613 receiving yards and a touchdown. And the other breakout season he had was in 2014. He saw a career high in the 3 main fantasy categories for wide receivers: 65 receptions, 699 yards, and 5 touchdowns, which is
That's 3 years ago, though.
right. That's the only good year besides this past year that the Bills had in the passing game. So now he's on a completely new team with a new head coach, the Redskins' former offensive coordinator who ran a pass-heavy game. He's now the head coach of the Los Angeles Rams. Now he's one of the top 2 wide receivers in Los Angeles. He can have a much bigger role and maybe a better offense and maybe a better quarterback than whoever. I mean, Tyrod Taylor. Isn't there another quarterback in the running there?
When it was 2014, I don't think Tyrod was their starter.
Wasn't it
was like
Fitzpatrick?
Fitzpatrick, DJ Manuel.
Right.
Yeah, guys like that.
So maybe he has another. He's a deep threat. He's young. He's in his early 20s, 25 years old. So he's a good young option for a lot of players.
Yeah, I think he's a good guy to take a flyer on, but I think, if you don't have any wide receiver depth and you're leaning on him, you better pray every night that Jared Goff makes an unbelievable turnaround. You know what? He was my flex originally, but I'll move him up to wide receiver because we're talking about him. I have Zay Jones too, and I think I could have swore you stole all the stats you listed off my stat sheet, but you're right. I mean, he was a beast in college, and you want to see a stat that's unbelievable is that everybody, the first thing they think about the Bills is a running game with Tyrod Taylor, like you said, and LaShawn McCoy, who's that 3rd best running back in the draft now, right? Mm-hmm. But in 2015, when Sammy Watkins was healthy, before he goes over to the Rams, he had a over 1,000 yard season and a 9 touchdown season. That's with Tyrod Taylor. That's with LaShawn McCoy. So having an over 1,000 yard season is not out of the question. So, and I really don't think, I think Jordan Matthews is just going to help his value even more because Jordan Matthews is just a name brand guy, so he draws the best safety from each team. So Zay Jones is going to get way better coverage that he can blow by and gain yards.
Zay Jones is going to be the man. My second wide receiver is Tyrell Williams. He's a big play waiting to happen. Last year, he led the league in 40-plus yard receptions among all wide receivers. And he finished 13th among all wide receivers, which is pretty high, actually, for somebody that's going 114th in drafts. So, yeah, obviously Keenan Allen wasn't there last year, so he's going to be moved down to number 2. But it's important to note that Williams was at his worst in the last few games of the season when teams started to key in on him because they realized he was becoming a threat. So with the attention on Keenan, he can still put up great numbers, especially for where he's going in drafts. I would be comfortable drafting him 114th.
All right, yeah. My guy's from Detroit. He's getting drafted 147th overall in drafts. Marvin Jones, the number 1 wide receiver from the Detroit Lions. It's kind of eerie how he finished with the same targets and touchdowns from 2015 and 2016 season. But even with 10 less receptions this past season, he still received 100 more receiving yards with 938 yards, which is pretty impressive for him. It was his first year being the number 1 wide receiver on a team. He had 44% of his season total yardage in over his first three games of the season, which is pretty good, but the second half of the season is where a lot of people were disappointed on him, and why people are drafting him so low. But he still has that potential to shine. Like I said, all these guys I'm choosing have the potential to shine, but he's proven that he has shined before. Listen, ever since Calvin Johnson's left the team, he retired, the lines have been garbage. Matt Stafford's not the same. He still has the ability to air it out. They don't have a lot of receiving options. Don't they have Golden Tate as well?
Yeah, so Golden Tate's going to draw that high safety.
Right, exactly.
Jones open.
So that's why I'm drafting Marvin Jones.
Yeah, I can see it. My second wide receiver is Ted Ginn from the New Orleans Saints. And, I really don't think there's a lot we have to say about this. The second he signed, he went to the Saints. It's like a perfect match. You're talking about a guy who straight just runs deep routes, and that's his main key. And the most accurate passer for deep routes is Drew Brees. So it's the perfect match, and he's the number 2 wide receiver with a quarterback who gets close to 5,000 yards like it's nothing every season. So projecting him for somewhere in the 800, 850 yard range with a couple touchdowns is not unreasonable at all, and he could go even higher than that. So getting him so late is amazing.
He's a guy that's going to have big games.
Yeah.
So. My tight end is Cameron Brate on the Bucks. He's going 138th in drafts. He was the 7th tight end, finished as the 7th tight end last year, and his value comes in the red zone. He led all tight ends in touchdowns with 8 touchdowns last season, and 6 of those touchdowns came in the second half of the season. The Bucs are becoming more pass-heavy with the rise of Jameis Winston, and with Doug Martin absent in the first few weeks, we could see Brate going off in the first few weeks. The only thing people are scared of with Brate, the reason he's going so late, is because the Bucs added rookie O.J. Howard, but he's really not much to worry about because, as the coaching has said, Brate has the clear starting job right now, and rookie tight ends, historically in fantasy, have a high tendency to fail. So there's really not much to worry about. I would comfortably draft Brate, especially that late. You're really not taking that much risk, and you're getting a high amount of touchdowns out of tight end. So
I always feel like the tight ends on the Bucs are always like stand out.
Mm-hmm.
Safarian Jenkins.
Yeah.
Those,
I mean, his career
they tend to go to the big guy in the end zone. That's why. So.
All right, so I'm going to go with Jared Cook, who's getting drafted 154th overall. So last year, he spent 10 games with the Green Bay Packers. He had 30 catches for 380 yards and 1 touchdown. So that's why people are drafting him low. Also, like we were talking about tight ends, there's only like top 3 and then the rest are like iffy. He's not having impressive numbers ever since he's been drafted into the NFL, but he is a physical beast who runs with blazing speed, and it's shocking that it took this long for Derek Carr and him to be paired up, because Derek Carr's always been looking for that big tight end guy he can just rely on. And don't forget about Michael Crabtree and Amari Cooper, who are on that team too. They're going to be drawing a lot of attention, like we've all been talking about. The top receivers on the team draw attention, so these average guys are going to get a lot of passes. And I feel like Jared Cook is going to get a lot of passes from Derek Carr, especially in the end zone. They look for that threat. And I just see him being a big part of that Oakland offense.
And Lynch is going to keep that chains moving.
Exactly.
I mean, my tight end, pardon me, is going to be from the Indianapolis Colts, Jack Doyle. Doyle. Yeah,
broiled peanuts.
Yeah. He finished with close to 600 yards last year and 5 touchdowns. Look, when you get this late into a draft, all the good tight ends are gone. And really what it comes down to is who's that clear-cut starter? I mean, I see a lot of what Tyler Eifert was before he broke out and what Jack Doyle could be. Plays on a great offense, plays with a quarterback and a coaching staff that throws to the tight end 20% of the time. His ADP is close to 130. And, another thing to think about is, the only person holding him back last year was Dwayne Allen. Dwayne Allen's in New England now.
Right.
He's gone. Kobe Fleener left 2 years ago. Now Allen's gone. Jack Doyle is the guy, and you just got to pray that Luck comes back and looks healthy, and if he does, this guy could get 6 or 7 touchdowns.
Who are the other passing options on the team?
I mean, you got T.Y. Hilton, you got Dante Moncrief, but
The
Luck's going to throw the ball so much.
The touchdowns are going to probably go to Doyle, though.
Yeah.
Flex.
All right.
Flex.
You flexing with?
My flex is Rashard Matthews. He finished 14th among wide receivers last season, and from weeks 5 through 17, so those are the last 12 weeks of the season, he scored 9 touchdowns. He's going 122nd in drafts. Marcus Mariota is career 33-0 for touchdowns to interceptions in the red zone. If he can continue this success in the red zone, Rashard will continue to see these red zone targets. And with Mariota poised for a breakout season, Rashard can put up good numbers, especially for the value you're getting him at. 122nd, 14th overall wide receiver from last year. I mean, that's great value.
Well, my guy, he's okay. He's CJ Prosise from Seattle. He's around 140th in ADP. So listen, Eddie Lacy and Thomas Rawls, they're going for the number 1 spot for the running back, but he is going to be their passing red zone guy. He's going to get those touchdowns. Last year, I believe he was a rookie. He showed, as long as he remains healthy, he's been showing flashes of excitement and a real potential here. He is a cheap investment. The flex guy is someone that you're not drafting as your number 1 wide receiver, your number 1 tight end, or whatever. So he's not going to be your number 1 running back. He's also not going to be number 2. So if you get him late in the draft, it's a good snag. So Eddie Lacy, we've seen his struggles in Green Bay. Thomas Rawls was pretty good last year.
I think Rawls would fit on this list of guys as well. I think Rawls has a good opportunity to be.
Yeah, I mean that whole backfield is being pushed down in their ADP just because it's going to be a committee. But somebody,
probably one of them is going to end up on top.
Right. So why not take the cheapest guy if you can get him towards the end?
I mean, I'm taking Rawls personally. He's not going too much earlier than CJ Procise. Probably 10 picks earlier.
I don't know, but see what happens because I mean.
But yeah, I would take one of them.
Rawls and Lacy also have the injury bug stinging them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Procise,
and they always like to
stay healthy.
They like to switch around. I mean, without Marshawn Lynch, it's been different. Ever since Marshawn Lynch left, they've been using multiple running backs in the backfield. It's not like you just stick with one.
Yeah.
So
if they do end up with one, you want to have them because you're going to be getting them late.
Right.
So.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Who's your flex, Colin?
My flex is Randall Cobb from Green Bay. I mean, look, he's going close to 100. He just goes under the 100 ADP. It's really tough to trust him. I understand that. However, when you're looking for depth and you're looking for guys to shore up on your team, like, all right, they might give me something, especially for wide receiver. Pair your wide receiver with a great quarterback.
But every year, I think Randall's going to give me something, and I draft him, and then he gives me nothing. Like
I know.
He's not overrated because now his ADP is falling, but he's overrated in the sense that like his name sounds a lot better than what he does. If you look at his numbers, he's only really had one decent season.
I agree. I think 2 years ago, he won people fantasy leagues because of where he was taken, how many touchdowns.
And then he disappointed.
But Jordy Nelson, yes, he's the undisputed number one, but the guy had 14 touchdowns. Awesome season, but is he going to do it twice?
Let me add something. Devontae Adams.
Yeah, Devontae Adams, yes, and he'll push for receptions, and yes.
That team is full of wide receivers that are talented.
And Martellus Bennett, I think he's going to have a big year.
Yeah, one of the things, when I drafted Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb one year, which is a big mistake, so what I've realized is that one of them will have a good week one week, and then that same guy who had a good week one week will have a bad week, and then the other guy will have a good week. So Randall Cobb and Jordy Nelson, Devontae Adams, one of those three guys is going to have a good week, and it always alternates every single week.
I mean, I just think, even with... Let's look at the Saints from last year, right? Drew Brees was still able to bring fantasy relevance to Michael Thomas, Brandon Cooks, and Willie Snead when he had to. 3 receivers, 3-receiver core, and he had his tight end and Coby Fleener. Aaron Rodgers could easily do the same thing.
It's totally possible.
With Devontae Adams, with Randall Cobb, and with Jordy Nelson. So, yes, this bet is a lot on him refining his relationship with Rodgers, but if he turns on the touchdowns again and Jordy Nelson comes back a little bit, could happen.
Could happen. Okay, so those were our teams. If you have your own over 100 ADP team, you can put it in the comment section and we will give our opinions on it. So we hope you enjoyed this.
Good luck at the draft.
Especially the second half of your draft.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll see you next time.